run, that will make your life so much easier. Alright? So when I look at A, we already talked about it, 1/5 P equals negative 10. And then how do I solve that? Do what? So there are two ways to think about it. 1/5 is being multiplied by P, right? So divide by 1/5. Hey, do y'all want to divide by a fraction? No, I don't want to put that in a calculator. But if you remember how we represent division by a fraction, there's a really easy way to do it. You multiply by its reciprocal times 5. Remember, this also right here is division by 5. What's the inverse of division? Multiplication, right? So I recognize that, and I multiply by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. P is equal to negative 50. So I know I need negative 50. Alright? And so this is detail that came up with a couple of us. Is this going to be an open point or a closed point?
Open.
Open, right?
It has the line, does that mean it's closed?
Okay, what does this line mean? It can equal, right? And so this is the way I was explaining it to Nathan. If you think about electronics, if you have a closed circuit, electricity can go through that circuit. If it's an open circuit, nothing can happen. The same thing is true here. If it's an open point, nothing is happening there. You cannot equal it, you cannot use it, it's an open point. If it is, and you can't equal it, if it's closed, you're using that value, right? So I got you. The reason why it's called that is if it's open, like this is usually how we represent it, can electricity get through there? That's the whole point. It's an open circuit because nothing can get through. But if I close that out so that it actually looks like this now, that circuit is complete and electricity can get through. So you're closing that. If that language doesn't work for you, ignore it, right? That's just how I think about it. And then we need to find which side of the number line makes the inequality true. Little trick on this. There's two little tricks. Okay? Gracie, what number did y'all originally try for this inequality?
Negative 49.
Negative 49. Is that to the right of negative 50? Yeah. So if it's true, we know to shade to the right. But pay attention to what you're going to do. I'm doing 1/5 of something, which means I'm dividing by 5. What kind of numbers would make sense if I'm going to divide by 5? 5, 10, 15, 20, things like that. Multiples of 5. Use that to your advantage, okay? And so that's what I suggested. I said I'm going to use negative 40. And I'm going to go back to the original inequality because that's what I need to make true. So negative 8 is greater than negative 10. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
So did negative 40 work? So which direction am I going? To the right. Here's an even easier tip. Jada, what number did I tell y'all that was always a good number to test? 0. Y'all, 0 is like the best number in the world when testing. 1/5 times 0 greater than negative 10. Hey, that's 0. Is 0 greater than negative 10?
Yeah.
0 makes your life easy. Right? You can always test 0 because if it makes the inequality true, you know you're going that direction. If it doesn't, you're going the other direction. Those are solutions. And so, there's a little trick after this though. DJ, what was the maximum value? Yeah, is that ever going to stop? So you can write an infinity symbol, right? So please note, it's never going to stop, so we put an infinity there. Now don't forget, a bracket means you can equal that number. Can you ever get to infinity? No, you can never get to infinity, you can never equal it, so we're never, ever, 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 ever going to use a bracket on an infinity. We can't equal it, it's got to be a parenthesis.
You gotta put a bracket on the other one.
Can we equal the negative 50?
Oh, no, we can't.
Because remember, it was just greater than, remember, we can now identify P as greater than negative 50 because we know it's to the right. We know it's greater than because we originally started with a greater than. Make sense? Okay? But-
kinda had the interval notation on B.
B?
Like we worked it out and did the number line and everything, but I don't know how to do it.
Okay, so I'm gonna work it out quickly. Actually, quick question, what was y'all's first step solving B? Distributive property? Is that what y'all think? What about this? What's 4 divided by 4? 4 divided by 4? Could you use distributive property? Heck yeah. Is that gonna be a little bit easier? So x plus 7 equals 2x plus 8? That's a trick from just doing a lot of math, right? But I'm looking for the most efficient solution path. Distribution totally works. If you see it, go for it. But if you see that division by 4, right? I'm multiplying by 4 on both sides. Well, I'm just going to divide by 4 and get rid of that. If I was multiplying by 4 and by 2, I would just divide by 2 to get rid of, one of the 2's. Right? Just trying to be efficient. Are you good with that, Grayson? Okay. So from here, it depends on the way you solve it. I'd probably divide or subtract by 2x. I would subtract by 7 in the same step. Notice I can do this where I do multiple properties of equality, or equality in this case, at the same time, because what is 2x minus 2x? 0. And as long as I do it to the other side, I'm good. What's 7 minus 7? As long as I do it to the other side, I'm good. So negative x is equal to 1. X is equal to negative 1, right? So, I know negative 1 has to be on the number line. There it is. Open or close point? Closed. That sounds gross. All right, now I want to find the solutions. It's either to the left or it's to the right. So test that number 0. What is x plus 0, or what is 0 plus 7? And then 7 times 4, 28. And then it's less than or equal to, that's what we're trying to see if it's true, 2 times 0? 0, 0 plus 8, 8 times 4. Okay, so does 0 make the inequality true? You jumped straight to the end.
Oh, yeah, I was about to say, you were
Okay, I just want to make sure we get all the way through. So 0 is a solution, which notice, and we haven't seen one like this yet, but that means negative 2 is not a solution, right? If you test negative 2, negative 2 plus 7 is 5, 5 times 4 is 20. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, negative 4 plus 8 is 4, 4 times 4 is 16. Notice, does negative 2 make the inequality true? No. Stuff to the left doesn't make it true. Stuff to the right does make it true. Does that make sense? Okay. So there's my number line. And so what is the minimum value possible? Negative 1. I would put a bracket because I can equal that negative 1. So you see right here where it says less than or equal to? So whenever it has the line below the less than or the greater than, that literally means less than or equal to. So that means I could equal that negative 1. Let's actually look at what that means. So that means that negative 1 should make that inequality what? True. What's negative 1 plus 7? Plus. Okay, good. Yeah, it's fine. Use a calculator. And then what's 4 times 6? 24. Okay? What's 2 times negative 1? And then negative 2 plus 8. And then 4 times 6 is 24 less than or equal to 24? So is negative 1 a solution? Right? That's why we close that point out. Now if you were to look up here, and I think group 4 ran into this issue where they even tested a negative 50, right? If I test negative 50, I get negative 10 is greater than negative 10. Is negative 10 greater than negative 10? No, it's equal to. That's why it does, we have an open point and it's not equal to. It's not a solution. Does that explain that detail? Okay. All right. Let me check one thing real quick. Okay. And so I just want you to see, you can figure out, oh, and then -1 to infinity, parentheses, right? We can always use that creating an equation to make our life easier on the inequalities. And then we test. And that's going to matter when we get to absolute value stuff in a second. Let's look at D quickly. Did anyone do D? Because it is the most complicated-ish. Okay, let's look at D together. What would be your first step in dealing with, well, first off, what would I need to do first? I missed one step. Make it an equal sign. Make an equation to find that point in the middle-ish. What would y'all do next?
Jelani, wake up.
I would what? Okay, totally distribute. You know what I see in this equation though that I absolutely hate and don't want to deal with? A fraction. What could I do to get rid of that fraction? Multiply by 3, right? You can do that first. Just be aware that you would need to distribute or just do the 3 times the -2. You could distribute first and then multiply by 3. It's your choice, right? So C is equal to -2 times 3 is -6. Notice I don't need to multiply 3 by here and by here because I'm about to distribute that 3 as a part of that -6. C equals -6C minus, nope, that's not -7, that's it, plus 42. It's a good thing I paid attention, right? So then I add 6C because what's -6C plus 6C? Right, I'm always trying to make that 0. And so I get 7C is equal to 42. Divided by 7. C is equal to 6. Okay. So what number has to be on my number line? 6. 0, 2, 4, 6. Notice I change my scale depending on what kind of numbers I have. When I'm trying to get to a 6, I go by 2s. When I'm getting to -50, I go by 10s. When I go to -1 though, it's just 1s, right? It is what it is. Alright, so first things first, is that 6 going to have an open or closed point? Open. I cannot equal it. And I know that because of what I originally started with. What number might I want to test at this point? Totally test 8? Why are you thinking 8? It is close to it. I mean, we could do 7 too. I will say I would not suggest 8. Looking at the inequality, can anyone see why I might not do 8? Okay, well technically 8 can be divided by 3, but am I going to get an integer when I do that? No. Come on, what one number did I say is always a great option? 0. So I would do 0 divided by 3 is less than -2 times 0 minus 7. What is 0 divided by 3? That is the 0. If you can't remember whether it's 0 or undefined, that's why I use calculators. They're great. 0 is less than, okay? 0 minus 7, not 7, -7. -2 times -7 is 14. Is 0 less than 14? Is 0 a solution? So then I'm going to shade to the left. Right? So notice it would be C equals 6. The final answer would actually be C is less than 6. The reason why I chose to look at D though is, what would my minimum value be? Right? If I'm doing interval notation, I mean, I already tested 0 and I'm going way beyond that. Huh? And would it be an infinity? Okay, but it's going into the negatives, so it would be a negative infinity. That's all it is, right? It's going into the negatives, so it's a negative infinity. Bracket or parenthesis? Can you equal infinities? No. So it's a parenthesis. What's the maximum value? 6. Bracket or parenthesis? Can you equal the 6?
Yes.
We put an open point. Can we equal it? You gotta go back to the original inequality, right? That does not say equal to. So it's parenthesis. Okay? Make sure you study some of those notes over the weekend. Okay? To make sure we understand that. Yes, ma'am?
So are you doing the homework so you can run to
We're not going over homework today, but yes, you can run to the bathroom really quick. I'm assuming if there's only 10 minutes left, you must really have to use the restroom. We don't have time to do 20.4. I would highly suggest that you do it, and I will open time up for you to ask questions on Monday before we do anything else if you have questions about 20.4. Alright. Y'all don't have this activity yet. Although, let me go ahead and send this to your calculators. I actually heavily modified this one to be closer to what we want. Come on. Alright. So you should be getting a file right now. And this is the sheet that goes along with it. Sorry that the copier is the worst because these holes suck. If you want to hole punch with the hole punch I have on the Student Work Center, go right ahead.
Do you not hole punching yourself?
No, there's a feature on the printer that will automatically hole punch until it screws up like this. Alright. So here's the thing I want to look at. Actually, I'm going to pull up the thing on the TI Inspire. We're looking at absolute values right now. Yes, ma'am. Alright, so here's the first slide that you should be looking at. Here's the second one. Really quickly, alright, I want to point out that you can't see anything because I have lots of crap written on the board. Yep, that's what I want to point out. So now we are getting into solving absolute value equations. And we will get into inequalities with that on Monday. And that's probably where we will wrap up. So we probably will have to test on Wednesday, but we're going to do what we can. Really quickly, before we start getting into these absolute value equations, what is the absolute value of 5?
5.
Okay, why?
Because it's absolute value.
What is absolute value though?
Oh,
It just is 0.
Okay, make sure you make this note on the absolutely page if you did not already know this. The absolute value is the distance from 0, or at least the absolute value of a number. So I'm going to clarify that because that's different from when there's variables involved. But absolute value equals of a number equals distance from 0. Which means that the absolute value of negative 5 is also what? How far is negative 5 from 0? It's 5. When solving absolute value equations, you start out a whole lot like solving equations until you get to the absolute value. Absolute value of x plus 6 equals 10. Absolute value of x plus 6 minus 6 equals 10 minus 6. What property did they just use? So notice nothing switched order, but you said what? Subtraction what? Property of equality. Notice, Grayson, right here, how we subtracted 6 on both sides? So what we did on one side of the equation, that subtraction by 6, we did on the other to make sure that the equation stayed the same. what's the mathematical word? Equivalent, right? The absolute value of x equals 4. Absolute value of what numbers would equal 4? The absolute value of 4 is equal to 4, right? So x could equal 4. Is there anything else? Negative 4.
Teachers and students,
Notice.
please pardon this quick interruption. I need to see the
Yep.
following students to the front desk to pick up some iPad information. Shaquan Prince, Xavier Tanker, Jaden Van Sant, Reagan Weatherby, and Cameron Wyatt. Thank you.
This goes back to what we did on a bell ringer question yesterday. If I have x squared equals 4, what could make that equation true?
Can I go?
Say again.
Can I go?
What can make that equation true? X could equal 2. Is there anything else? And a negative 2. Sometimes we have to think about, hey, is there more than one thing that can make that equation true? If I say that the absolute value of x equals 4, well then I could be taking the absolute value of 4, or I could be taking the absolute value of negative 4. Both of those values of x would make the equation true. Does that make sense? You good with that? That's why, make a note to yourself here, linear absolute value equations can't have 0, 1, or 2 solutions. Okay?
How'd you get 2 if there's a 4?
For x squared equals 4, what squared would equal 4? 2. Does that answer your question? Can you let Cameron in? Does that make sense? Okay. So that's where we're going to have to probably stop today, because I do want y'all to do a couple of exit slip questions. But I want you to make that note to yourself. That's why absolute value equations can have 2 solutions. Okay? There'll be more than that with absolute value inequality. So here are the exit poll questions. Just a couple. And they're literally strongly agree to strongly disagree. That's all that they are. It's not any work or anything like that. Alright, so please note, y'all can't see that? It should already be up there. Okay, so Monday we will try to finish up absolute value equations and inequalities. We probably need at least half a day to review before that test. So plan on the test. Try to plan for the test to be the second half of Tuesday's class, but be aware it could be / probably will be on Wednesday. Look over your quiz. Start on that homework. It's only 6 questions for lesson 20. All right. If you realize, hey, Mr. Kenny, I don't have that, email me over the weekend. But you need to come to class on Monday with questions. Same thing with 20.4 so that we can address misconceptions on the inequalities. Look over your notes. Use your notes to help you on the homework. All right? I'm going to collect them right now. But you can go ahead and put them up. Yeah. Thank you for that question. If you have questions over the weekend, please feel free to reach out 150%. Oh yeah, if you have homework to turn in, let's get that turned in. Also have data's braces. We able to say wait, what would better say? Have y'all ever seen the movie Kicking and Screaming with Will Ferrell? I always think about coffee as the lifeblood of champions due to that movie. Every time. That's why I drink it. Actually, I drink it because I would die if I didn't have coffee every day. I only have one cup though.